The signal and the response. The midnight shift at Deep Space Monitoring Station Arcadia was usually uneventful. Stationed at the edge of human-controlled space, the facility's primary purpose was to scan for anomalies, catalog stellar phenomena, and serve as an early warning system for potential threats. Lieutenant Sophia Chen was halfway through her third cup of coffee when the alert chimed. "What now?" she muttered, setting aside her mug and tapping at the console. Probably another passing comet with an unusual radiation signature. The screen displayed a signal pattern unlike anything in their database. It wasn't random cosmic noise or the echo of a distant supernova. This was structured, deliberate. A message. "Computer, analyze signal pattern and attempt translation," Sophia ordered, her fatigue instantly forgotten. First contact protocols had been drilled into every crew member, but nobody actually expected to use them, especially not at a backwater listening post like Arcadia. The computer worked for several minutes, comparing the signal against all known communication formats. Finally, it displayed its results. 87% PUROBABILITY. Distress scale. Sophia immediately hit the station-wide alert. Within minutes, Captain Alina Reyes arrived, her dark hair still disheveled from sleep, but her eyes alert and focused. "Report," she demanded, leaning over Sophia's shoulder to view the screen. "It's an SOS, Captain, coming from the Ta City sector, about 15 light-years from our position. No registered colonies or outposts there. The message repeats every 22 seconds. Captain Rice frowned. "Play it." The sound that filled the room was unlike human speech, a series of rapid, melodic tones that somehow conveyed desperate urgency even without understanding the words. The computer's translation scrolled across the screen. "To any sentient species who receives this message, we are the Lissari. Our worlds are being systematically consumed by a force we call the Swarm. They leave nothing behind. 3 billion of our kind have perished. They harvest all resources, organic and inorganic. Our defense forces have failed. If you can hear us, please help. The Swarm's next trajectory leads to coordinates." Reyes's face hardened as the coordinates appeared. "That's less than 2 light-years from New Eden Colony." "Should we notify Earth Command?" Sophia asked, already knowing the answer. "Immediately. Priority Alpha. Include the full signal and translation." The message was packaged and sent through the quantum relay, the fastest communication method humanity had developed. Within hours, the reply came, but it wasn't what anyone expected. "Arcadia Station. This is Admiral Zheng at Earth Command. Your transmission has been classified Level Omega. Continue monitoring, but take no further action. A special envoy is being dispatched to your location. Command out." 3 days later, a sleek military vessel appeared next to the station, its hull bearing the emblem of Fleet Intelligence. From it came Commander Diana Vega, a stern-faced officer whose reputation preceded her. "The signal is genuine," Vega confirmed after reviewing their data. "And it's not the first. We've detected similar distress calls from that region over the past month, but this is the clearest one yet." "So what happens now?" Reyes asked. Vega's expression remained neutral, but her eyes revealed a mixture of dread and determination. Now Earth awakened something it hoped never to use. She handed Reyes a sealed order packet. "Captain Reyes, you and your crew are hereby conscripted into Operation Sentinel. Effective immediately, this station becomes a forward observation post for what will soon be the largest military deployment in human history." The Grand Council chamber on Earth buzzed with tension. 50 of humanity's highest-ranking military and civilian leaders sat around the massive holographic display at its center. The recording of the alien SOS played again, the strange melodic tones echoing through the room. Admiral Zheng stood, her weathered face betraying no emotion. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a drill. Something is destroying entire civilizations out there, and based on their movement pattern, they could reach human colonies within 3 years. A tall man with graying hair raised his hand. With respect, Admiral, one distress call seems like thin evidence for activating our most dangerous weapons. General Santos, we've actually received 11 such calls in the past 6 months, Jing replied. This is just the first, clear enough to translate. Intelligence confirms the destruction pattern matches the coordinates in the message. Santos frowned. Even so, the Vanguard fleet was built as a last resort. Those ships were sealed away for good reason. The hologram shifted to show 7 massive warships, unlike any vessel currently in service. Their black hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Admiral Zheng's voice became solemn. The Vanguard was created during the darkest days of the Mars insurrection, when we feared humanity might tear itself apart. Technology that we've since deemed too dangerous to use. Quantum disruptors, gravity lenses, singularity bombs. But they may be our only chance against whatever this swarm is. A younger officer spoke up. Who would even command such a fleet? Nobody has trained for those weapon systems in decades. Zheng pressed a button, and a new image appeared. A man with piercing blue eyes and a jagged scar crossing his right temple. You can't be serious, someone muttered. Commander Jackson Hayes, Zheng said. The best tactical mind Earth has ever produced. Before his disgrace. The chamber erupted in objections. General Santos stood up angrily. Hayes has been in isolation on Europa base for 12 years. He was responsible for saving the Proxima colonies by making an impossible decision. Zheng cut in sharply. Yes, his methods were extreme. Yes, he disobeyed direct orders. And yes, thousands died, but millions lived because of him. The room fell silent. I've already spoken with him, Zheng continued. He's agreed to lead the mission on one condition: full operational freedom. No political oversight, no committee decisions. Hours of heated debate followed. Eventually, the vote was taken. 28 in favor, 22 against. The Vanguard fleet would be awakened. 3 days later, at a hidden facility beneath Europa's icy surface, Jackson Hayes watched as technicians prepared the 7 ships of the Vanguard fleet for launch, their systems activated for the first time in 20 years. They still fear you, you know, said Admiral Zheng, who stood beside him at the observation window. Hayes didn't look at her. Good. Fear keeps people honest. The crews are ready. All volunteers. The best we have. Hayes nodded. And they understand this might be a one-way mission. They do. Finally, Hayes turned to face the Admiral. I want one thing clear, Catherine. I will do whatever it takes to stop this swarm. If Earth Command gets squeamish about my methods again. You have my word, Zheng interrupted. No interference. Just stop them before they reach us. Below them, the first ship's engines glowed to life, bathing the hangar in eerie blue light. I should join my crew, Hayes said. Zheng extended her hand. Good hunting, Commander. Hayes looked at the offered hand for a moment before taking it. I'm not hunting, Admiral. I'm going to war. 24 hours later, the Vanguard fleet departed the Sol system, disappearing into the darkness of space. Behind them, humanity held its breath, wondering if they had just launched their salvation or their doom. The massive bridge of the Vanguard flagship Nemesis hummed with quiet activity. Commander Hayes sat in the central command chair, studying tactical displays showing the fleet formation. 6 weeks had passed since they left Earth, and they were now approaching the coordinates where the distress signal had originated. Status report, Hayes ordered, his voice calm but carrying across the bridge. His executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Maya Takahashi, stepped forward. All 7 ships maintaining formation, sir. Weapon systems at full capacity. No sign of enemy vessels yet, but long-range scanners are detecting unusual energy signatures ahead. Hayes nodded. Show me. The main view screen shifted to display their destination, a star system with 6 planets, or rather, what remained of them. The second planet was visibly fractured, its surface glowing with molten magma. The fourth had been reduced to an asteroid field. "My God," whispered someone on the bridge. "Magnify Sector 3, Hayes ordered. The image zoomed in to show objects moving among the planetary debris. Massive ships unlike any human vessel. They appeared to be harvesting materials from the shattered worlds. "First contact with the enemy," Hayes said quietly. "Record everything and prepare combat simulations based on their ship design." For 3 days, the Vanguard fleet maintained distance, observing the swarm at work. Hayes ordered his crew to study their patterns, their technology, their weaknesses. The aliens showed no sign of detecting the human vessels, which remained hidden behind stealth technology. Soon, they would make their presence known. And the galaxy would never be the same. First contact and revelations. The command deck of the Nemesis fell silent as Commander Hayes finished outlining his battle plan. On the tactical display, a simulation showed the 7 Vanguard ships splitting into 3 attack groups, each targeting different swarm strongholds simultaneously. "This is insanity," Captain Lin of the Vanguard ship Tempest said finally. "You're dividing our already outnumbered force." Hayes pointed to the tactical display. "The swarm has never faced a real military threat. Their tactics show it. They're predators, not soldiers. They rely on overwhelming numbers against defenseless opponents." His scared face hardened in the blue glow of the displays. "We hit them from multiple vectors. They won't know how to respond." Lieutenant Commander Takahashi studied the plan carefully. The timing would need to be perfect. If one group falters, the others will be left exposed. "Then we don't falter," Hayes said simply. As the strategy session concluded, the bridge communications officer interrupted. "Commander, we're detecting a small vessel approaching from the asteroid belt. It's broadcasting on our frequencies." Hayes straightened. "How is that possible?" "Put it through." A voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect English. "Human vessel, this is Navigator Ilara of the Lisari Remnant. We've been monitoring your ship since you entered the system. If you're here in response to our distress call, please allow us to dock. Time is critical." Hours later, the human officers stood face to face with the first confirmed intelligent alien species humanity had ever encountered. The Lisari were tall and slender, with iridescent skin that seemed to shift colors with their emotions. Their 4 eyes could move independently, and they communicated through both speech and subtle color changes across their skin. Navigator Ilara, their leader, placed a small device on the conference table. It projected a 3-dimensional map of the sector with dozens of star systems glowing softly. "The red stars have already fallen to the swarm," Ilara explained, her skin pulsing with dark blue, a color the humans would later learn indicated grief. More than half the stars turned crimson. "The yellow ones are under attack now." Hayes studied the map carefully. "Tell me about your people, Navigator. Who are the Lisari?" Ilara's skin shifted to a softer blue. "We are explorers and scientists. For thousands of years, we traveled between stars, establishing outposts on habitable worlds, preserving knowledge, advancing our understanding of the universe." Her skin darkened. "We developed few weapons. We never needed them until the swarm came." Takahashi leaned forward. "No significant military. How did you defend yourselves before?" The second Lisari, introduced as Scientist Toran, answered. "Defense was unnecessary. The few species we encountered were like us, peaceful, curious. We shared knowledge, not conflict." "That's why you're losing," Hayes said bluntly. "You don't understand your enemy. You don't think like them." Toran's skin flashed angry red, but Hayes continued, walking to the map. "These attack patterns aren't random. They're systematic, efficient." He pointed to specific systems. "They're establishing supply lines, defensive perimeters. This isn't mindless destruction. It's conquest." "This matches our observations," Ilara admitted, "but knowing their strategy hasn't helped us stop them." Hayes nodded. Because you're still thinking like Lizari. You need to think like warriors. He gestured to his officers. That's what humans excel at. For better or worse, our history is written in conflict. He activated a separate projection showing historical Earth battles from ancient armies to modern space conflicts. Thousands of years of warfare taught us something valuable: how to predict an enemy's moves, how to identify weaknesses, how to strike where it hurts most. The Lizari watched with visible discomfort. Your species finds pride in this history of violence. Ilara asked. Not pride, Hayes corrected. Necessity. We learned these skills to survive. Now those same skills might save your people. The commander stepped closer to the map and highlighted a specific star system. This appears to be their central processing hub. Heavy ship movements, resource transfers. If we strike here, we could disrupt their entire operation. Impossible. Torin's skin paled to almost white. They have hundreds of ships guarding that system. Hayes smiled thinly. Numbers aren't everything. The Vanguard fleet was designed to face impossible odds. He turned to his tactical officer. Lieutenant Vasquez, show them Simulation Alpha 3. Vasquez activated a holographic display showing the Vanguard ships executing a complex attack pattern. Swarm vessels began exploding in sequence as invisible forces tore them apart from the inside. What is this weapon? Torin asked, his voice barely a whisper. Quantum disruptors, Hayes explained. They target the atomic bonds that hold matter together. No shields can block them because they don't exist in normal space until they materialize inside the target. The Lizari's skin shifted to a deep purple, a color the humans would later learn indicated awe mixed with fear. Ilara finally spoke. You created such weapons to use against other humans. An uncomfortable silence fell across the human side of the table. Yes, Hayes finally admitted. But we chose not to use them. We locked them away, hoping we'd never need them. He looked directly at Ilara. Until now. 6 hours later, the Vanguard fleet split apart. The Nemesis and Thunderbolt headed toward the main swarm processing hub. The Tempest and Avalanche moved to attack their resource collection points. The remaining 3 ships targeted their fleet staging area. Hayes sat calmly in his command chair as the Nemesis dropped out of hyperspace directly in the middle of the swarm formation. Dozens of enemy ships immediately moved to surround them. Weapons hot, Hayes ordered. Target their command vessel first. The Nemesis shuddered as its main weapon powered up. A beam of concentrated gravitational force lanced out, striking the largest swarm vessel. The enemy ship didn't explode. It collapsed, folding in on itself as if crushed by an invisible giant hand. The resulting gravitational pulse damaged 3 nearby swarm ships. Second target, Hayes commanded, his voice steady as the bridge rocked from enemy fire impacting their shields. The Thunderbolt joined the attack, unleashing quantum disruptors that bypassed the swarm's shields entirely, materializing directly inside their ships and tearing them apart at the molecular level. The swarm formation, facing an attack unlike anything in their experience, began to falter. Some ships tried to flee while others pressed the attack with desperate intensity. Sir, we're receiving transmissions from the other battle groups, Takahashi reported, her face flushed with adrenaline. The Tempest and Avalanche have destroyed the processing hub. The third group has neutralized 16 enemy vessels at the staging area with minimal damage. Hayes nodded, showing no emotion. Status of enemy communications. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Seems like they're calling for reinforcements. Good. Lieutenant Vasquez, prepare the viral payload. Vasquez worked quickly at his console. Ready, sir. Send it through their own communication channels. The digital virus, developed specifically to attack the biomechanical systems the Lizari had identified in swarm technology, spread from ship to ship through their own distress calls. Within minutes, enemy vessels began losing power, their weapons falling silent. Sir, Takahashi said, her voice filled with surprise. The swarm is retreating. All of them, from all 3 battle sites. For the first time since the mission began, Hayes allowed himself a small smile. They've never retreated before, have they? Not according to the Lissari records. The bridge crew watched in amazement as the mighty swarm fleet scattered, abandoning their positions and fleeing into deep space. Ilara, who had been observing from the back of the bridge, moved forward. Her skin had turned a bright gold color. The human would later learn indicated awe. In all our history, the Lissari said quietly, we have never witnessed such a victory against them. Hayes turned to face her, his expression now serious again. This isn't a victory, Navigator. It's just the beginning. The captured swarm command vessel hung in space like a dead leviathan. Its strange bone-like structure was unlike any ship design humans had encountered before. Commander Hayes stood on the Nemesis bridge, watching as the boarding team's progress was transmitted back to the main screen. Atmosphere is breathable, barely, reported Lieutenant Vasquez through his helmet comm. Gravity fluctuating between 0.8 and 1.2 Earth normal. No sign of survivors. Hayes nodded. Proceed to the central chamber. Find their navigation data. The camera feed showed the team moving through curved corridors that seemed to pulse with faint bioluminescence. The walls were not metal but some kind of hardened organic material. Sir, Takahashi called from her station. Engineering reports unusual readings from the Vanguard weapon systems. Power fluctuations in the gravity lenses. They're becoming unstable. Hayes frowned. How long until critical? Unknown. Days, maybe weeks. But the pattern suggests progressive degradation. Before Hayes could respond, Vasquez's excited voice came through the comm. Commander, we found their central data core. It's alive, sir. Some kind of biological computer. The feed showed a massive chamber where thousands of glowing tendrils connected to a pulsing central mass. Scientist Turan, who had joined the boarding team, was already connecting translation devices to the tendrils. I can access their records, Turan reported, his skin flickering with excitement. They store information in biological memory strands, similar to DNA but far more complex. Focus on their flight path, Hayes ordered. Find out where they came from and where they're going next. For several tense minutes, the only sound on the bridge was the soft beeping of instruments as Turan worked. Then his skin suddenly turned ash gray, the Lissari equivalent of shock. Commander, he said, his translated voice trembling, you need to see this. The main screen filled with strange symbols that the translator converted to human language. As Hayes read, his face hardened. They're running, he said quietly. Running? Takahashi asked. From what? Hayes pointed to the data. The swarm aren't conquerors, they're refugees. They strip worlds to fuel their ships, to build more vessels, to stay ahead of something they call the void. The screen changed to show astronomical data, a region of space where stars were dying prematurely, where planets were becoming uninhabitable not through violence, but through some fundamental change in the laws of physics themselves. It's not a species, Hayes continued. It's a wave of altered spacetime expanding outward from somewhere near the galactic core. The swarm have been fleeing it for centuries. Ilara, who had been silently observing, moved closer to the screen. This cannot be true. They have destroyed hundreds of worlds, enslaved billions. They cannot be victims. Victims who became monsters, Hayes corrected. They sacrifice other species to save themselves. A new message came through from Earth Command, the first since the fleet had departed months ago. Admiral Zheng's grim face appeared on a side screen. Hayes, our scientists have completed their analysis of the Vanguard weapon systems. The quantum disruptors and gravity lenses are degrading faster than anticipated. Continued use could lead to catastrophic failures, possibly creating miniature black holes or worse. You are ordered to cease all offensive operations immediately and return to Earth. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Takahashi was the first to speak. Sir, what about the Lissari? And this void? Hayes stared at the astronomical data still displayed on the main screen. The expanding wave of destruction would reach Lissari's space within years and Earth within decades. He turned to Ilara, his decision already made. Our weapons are failing, but they might serve one final purpose. Not to destroy the swarm, but to save everyone. The commander rose from his chair, facing both his human crew and their Lissari allies. I have a plan. It will require sacrifices from all of us, but it might be the only way to stop the void. In that moment, the fate of multiple species, human, Lissari, and perhaps even the swarm, hung in the balance. The greatest test of humanity's ingenuity and courage was about to begin.